I haven't had to do this on my show before, but this is a trigger warning. This week's episode deals with sensitive subjects concerning physical violence and sexual assault. My guest goes into details that might be triggering for some listeners. If you cannot listen this week, I completely understand, and I appreciate your choice. And I promise you next week's episode will be free from sensitive content. While there's no explicit language in this episode, I'm going to check the explicit box on the podcast platforms in order to keep this from airing on players that have parental settings to protect their children from potentially harmful content. Again, this is your trigger warning for sensitive content. Hello, everybody, and thank you for listening to 15 Minutes with Fuzz. I am your host, Fuzz Martin, and on this show, we showcase the good going on here in Washington County, Wisconsin. I'm always looking for potential guests and topics to talk about. I've got a bunch of great ones lined up for you, including this one today. But if you ever have an idea for the show, please send it my way. Go to fuzz.cc/guest. That's fuzz.cc/guest, and drop me a line. Today's guest was brought to my attention via some of the work that I do with the Volunteer Center of Washington County. The Love is Greater Than Hate Project has a mission of ending violence against women and choosing love over hate. The organization is run by Buck Blodgett. Buck and Joy Blodgett's daughter, Jessie, was murdered in their home in July of 2013. It was because of that extremely tragic event that the Love is Greater Than Hate Project was born. On this episode, Buck shares Jessie's story and how he is dedicating his life to a dual mission of ending violence against women and learning how to forgive. And with that, here's 15 minutes on the Love is Greater Than Hate Project on 15 Minutes with Fuzz. Buck, thanks for joining me on the show. To start, this subject matter is going to be heavier than a typical show for me, but I think it's important to tell the story in order to set this up to talk about the Love is Greater Than Hate Project. So could you please tell us about your daughter, Jessie, and what happened to her?
Sure. Thanks for having me on, Fuzz. I love what you're doing. And it is an important story, and it's not just Jessie's story, it's everybody's story, in my opinion. That's why I do this. It's too late for Jessie. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be working so hard on this for 8 years now at my advancing years if it was only for Jessie, because it's too late for Jessie, but it's not too late for about 1 billion of our girls and women on our planet, 1 out of 3 of which will experience some form of sexual assault in their lifetime, and 1 out of 4 domestic violence. And the numbers aren't that different for boys either. So Jessie, how do I ever even start with her? She was 19 when it happened. She was between freshman and sophomore year at UWM. She had just changed her major from the teacher ed program to the music ed program because she was doing karaoke on campus, and one of the professors in the Peck School of the Arts heard her and offered her almost immediately a kind of a prestigious talent scholarship at UWM. Never had a chance to accept that offer. She was also offered a choir director position at a local church in our town where she grew up in Hartford. Just a couple weeks before that, never had a chance to get started and accept that offer either. She was also offered a job on campus mentoring disadvantaged inner city students at UWM. Never had a chance to accept that job either. She did have a chance to start her own business. About 2 months at the beginning of summer, that summer, 2013, she made this little flyer, and I saw it, and I thought, hey, that's really cool, honey. And we drove around stuffed mailboxes all over Hartford for a month or two. She had 28 young students every week coming to our house for piano, violin, and voice lessons from Jess, my 19-year-old entrepreneurial, talented, self-confident daughter. She was really smart. She was a great student, near straight A student in the Honors College at UWM. She was the fiddler in her first community theater, Hartford Players, The Fiddler on the Roof. She won the title role. And they performed Friday, Saturday, and Sunday in July of 2013. and had the traditional cast party Sunday night. And that was her last night on Earth. And the next morning, she was sleeping in, and a trusted friend who was in her pretty close circle of friends of about a dozen or so in the theater in high school. And they did all the forensics together and all the musicals and plays and state solo ensemble. And they sat right next to each other, first and second chair violin in the orchestra for 4 years. He was welcome in her home, and he waited for me and Joy to leave for work that morning and surprised Jessie in her sleep. And trigger warning, by the way, for your listeners, especially those who have experienced violence, been traumatized, trigger warning now. What happened in about 30 seconds was he came in, went upstairs, surprised Jess in her sleep. He hog-tied her, gag-balled her, taped the gag ball, and raped Jessie. And then he reached for his backpack, which the DA called his murder kit, pulled out a rope, put it around Jessie's neck, pulled as hard as he could, I guess, till she lost consciousness, and then held it for another 45 seconds. Because he also watched a snuff film that morning before he came over. The DA called it his instructional video. This was not a heat of the moment, crime of passion, lost my mind. This was a long planned, as computer search showed for months, execution. A friend. And then he watched life leave Jess. So that's what happened.
Yeah.
But that's not why I'm here this morning or why I do what I do, because it's what came next.
Thank you for sharing your story. And I know that it never gets easier to tell. And I appreciate it's important that people hear it, because the what comes next is important to making sure that it doesn't happen again, right?
Yes, and it's also important people hear it. As much as I trigger people, I'm always walking this thin line. I don't want to trigger people. I don't want to hurt people.
Yep.
And it hurts. It triggers their emotional, the violence they've experienced. But if we can't face the darkness, if we have to bury our heads in the sand, pretend it's not there, look the other way, not talk about it, if we can't talk about it, we don't have any power to change it.
Yeah. Well, as a dad of a soon-to-be college freshman and a younger daughter as well, it's very... and try not to be overcome with emotion, but it's hard not to, because you picture yourself in your position, and we should all want to do whatever we can to ensure this doesn't happen, not only to our own kids, but to others as well. So,
thank you so much for that. That's why I do this, because I didn't do anything about this issue until after it happened, and I'm hoping to recruit our culture to do something about it before it hits their family.
So let's talk about after that. There were vigils. The community of Hartford came together, and the theater community and others. The Love is Greater Than Hate Project kind of formed through that. So tell us about what happened after.
There's so much to this, and my spirituality is probably going to come out, and I'll try to be sensitive to different worldviews. So 3 days after Jess was killed, I was at the Hartford PD, and they found the cereal box in the trash in Woodlawn Park. And the evidence it was all unfolding as I was sitting in Detective Thicken's office. We found out it was Dan. That was the day we found out who Jessie's killer was. We'd been telling police for 3 days that, no, it's not him, because he kept asking us about him. They couldn't tell us everything. No, he's a good kid, never been in any trouble, straight A student. My initial reaction was not anger, hate, violence. I want to kill him. Give me 5 minutes with him. Bloodlust. It wasn't any of that. It's hard to explain still 8 years later, and I've explained it hundreds of times. But my reaction was more, he was at our house the day after he did it. Nobody knew it was him then. He was there for half the day crying with us, sharing memories. He was part of her friend family. Therefore, he was part of our family.
Yeah.
And my house filled up for, until the funeral with people loving each other, helping each other through this. So he's part of that. My first reaction was genuine concern for him. and I loved him. And so it was, what could possibly be so wrong in this kid's brain and heart that would allow him to do this? That's how it started. It morphed over the next few days and weeks into chosen forgiveness, a conscious forgiveness. It's the most powerful part of our project, I find. That's what resonates so strongly with people, is the ridiculous forgiveness. I don't take any credit for it. I had to say yes to it, but I don't believe it came from me. I now believe it came to me and through me to bless others and for me and for all of us. I believe it's always there for all of us, and we just have to open up to it and say yes. At her funeral, I said, in that crazy forgiving state and loving everybody state, and the outpouring of love changed me forever. It was, I don't have no words for the outpouring of love from my family, Joy's family, Jessie's friends, our whole community of Hartford and way beyond. Changed me forever. And I thought at one point, why don't we do this for each other every day? Why does it take tragedy to wake us up and bring out the best of us? So at her funeral, I said, love is greater than hate. At the time, I didn't really think or know where that came from, why I said that. A month later, at the vigil that other people planned, in fact, the first responder who sat with my wife, Joy, the day it happened, and from the fire department and the fire chief, Paul, they planned this vigil. 500 people showed up from our small town, walked together in the dark for 2 hours, and there were signs all along the way. Volunteers had spent days on, obviously. And they said, love is greater than hate, and everybody had on this blue wristband that Lori spent $400 on. Love is greater than hate. Big banner in the park, love is greater than hate. The words from the funeral a month earlier. That night, love is greater than hate, and made the 10 o'clock news on all 4 news channels in Milwaukee. And I went to bed that night, and I knew something's up here. And it started to dawn on me that a project was being born, and I was supposed to do something.
Now let's talk about the project. And again, that's very moving, and I really appreciate you sharing your story with us and how this all came to be. Your organization has the mission of ending male-on-female violence, inspiring love over hate, and then you also have a very strong and aggressive vision, which is zero tolerance for interpersonal violence by the end of the century. Those are very well crafted. As a person who does missions and visions for companies and organizations, like this is, you can use these as examples of how to do it. How are you working to serve your mission and achieve your vision?
Well, it's funny you notice that, because we are blessed with a great coach, and we've had a lot of help crafting. And mission clarity, I've come to understand, is everything. And I know those missions and that vision are, to most people, that would be pie in the sky. And, but I understand you got to have not only your head in the clouds, but your feet on the ground. And we do, and I'm not crazy. And I do believe it's possible. We've never ended violence against our girls and women before, but there was a time when we were never on the moon, and there was a time when we never crossed the ocean. And there was, human history is full of advancements. And to me, this might be the greatest one ever. And I don't know if I'll see it in my lifetime. I can't wrap my head around that it's possible in my lifetime, but I can stand for it. And I want everybody to stand for it.
What are you doing as an organization in order to get this message out there and to teach individuals that love is greater than hate, and to teach them to love more than they hate? What goes into that?
We do a lot of different things. I'll see how quick I can share some of them to give you a sense.
Sure.
First of all, we're a message organization. We're not a service organization, so we don't shoe the shoeless and feed the hungry and house the homeless. And we don't serve domestic violence victims and sexual assault victims. We have a county shelter, Friends, Inc., that does that better than we ever could. And every county in the country has a shelter like that. Great expert people are already doing that. We're trying to change culture. I'm trying to use a powerful personal story of death and life and loss and beauty and forgiveness to capture, especially young, but everybody's hearts and minds, and shift culture to actually accomplish our mission and end violence against our girls and women. Impossible, people say. I don't believe so. I just believe we haven't done it yet. So what do we do? All kinds of different stuff. We do presentations. That just started naturally because I had this story inside me that was screaming to be told. And thank you for giving me another chance 8 years later.
Absolutely.
130 presentations now for 18,000 people in 6 states of a message from Jessie. And now we've developed a series of 6 presentations. We deliver them in schools and the state prison system and professional conferences and police academies and community groups and churches and anywhere and podcasts and anywhere and everywhere I can. Anyone who wants to hear about Jessie. But one and done presentation isn't enough. We got to do more. So we have a media campaign. We do print media. We're in the middle of our second print campaign. And those cost money because we have this expert, what's her title? She helps us connect to publishers and to...
So like a publicist or
a publicist. Yeah. That's the word I'm looking for. And our 2 print campaigns combined have now reached a little over 100 million UVPMs, online readers, basically.
Yeah.
We've done over 40 live radio interviews on Nielsen rated stations all over the country, USA Today, etc. Print campaign, radio campaign, TV. Jessie's story has been covered by 4, including Dateline NBC, 4 one-hour made-for-TV documentary films that have been seen on 5 continents by tens of millions of people. It's ridiculous. I've never done anything in my life that I've had 1/1000th of the success of as this project. And that tells me 2 things. It tells me it's a powerful personal story that resonates with people that they care about. And it tells me that a lot of people care about it, meaning it's happened to them or it's happened to someone they know. TV, radio, print media, social media. We have 12,000 followers on social media. We reach over 50,000 people a month. So we do these media campaigns. We do presentations. But that's not enough. We got to have programs too, and systems change. So we're trying to do some things there. We have the poster project you'll ask me about later, right here in our county. We have a school project that's been delayed by the pandemic. But we're trying.
Let's talk about that poster campaign. So you recently did a ride with the Volunteer Center of Washington County's Do Good bus. Tell us about that trip and what you did with this poster campaign.
Another thing I don't know where to start with. I'm still basking in the sunshine of that day. Delta Defense. I believe it costs $1,500 or something like that to sponsor the Do Good bus. Maybe $1,000. Sorry, Volunteer Center, if I got my facts wrong.
I'm on the board and I don't know. I can't remember what it costs either.
It was such an incredible day, Fuzz. Thank you for being on the board. There's 3 volunteer centers in the state of Wisconsin. How did I luck out living in the town with one? It's the coolest thing ever. If you're not volunteering, my friends listening, it was so fun. Delta Defense not only bought the bus, but they also sent 19 employees who came to just have a volunteer experience. They had no idea what they were coming to. We all met at the hub and had lunch. And for an hour, we sat there together, breaking bread, and they listened to my story. I told them what our mission is and what happened, just like I've just told you guys. They also listened to Kate from Friends Inc. tell their story. And then also the Volunteer Center and what the Volunteer Center is trying to do. And then we all hopped on the bus and drove to Hartford. And in the 20-minute ride, we said, hey, here's what we want to do. We had all these posters made. These volunteers got off the bus in 35 degrees, spit and rain, windy, worst day ever weather. And I was just so moved, and I'm so grateful. Their passion for an issue they didn't even know about the day before was so strong. And we blitzed the county. Long story short, we placed almost 200 posters in 48 businesses.
Wow.
And there's 2 kinds of posters. One of them targets victim survivors, and it's got Jessie's photo image on it and some text. And the text is basically raising awareness. So the larger community, when they go to the restaurant, go to the bar, go to the library, go to the police station, they'll see these and be reminded that this happens every day in our world. But it's also a call to action to victim survivors to call this hotline and get help to end the violence. And then the other poster targets offenders.
Okay.
We must engage in offenders, perpetrators, if we're going to really get anywhere with our mission.
Yeah.
We must speak to something in them that doesn't repel them, but attracts them, that doesn't demonize them, hate on them, The most powerful thing about our project was, I think, mine and Joy's forgiveness of the young man who killed Jessie. And that's a genuine thing, by the way. I've had forgiveness and love in my heart for him every day for 8 years. And same with offender perpetrators. Now, I got to be really careful because there's a lot of people listening who've experienced sexual assault, domestic violence, and they don't necessarily have love in their hearts for the people who did that to them, and that's totally understandable. I will never excuse Dan for what he did to Jessie, and I will never be okay. He's accountable for his choices and his actions and his behaviors that day, just like I'm accountable for mine every day of my life, and my words too, and my thoughts too. We're all accountable. But that doesn't mean I can't love and forgive. And we're going to have to engage offenders in their own transformation and inspire them to want that and seek it. So the second poster has a hotline number for them. The essence of the poster project is it's a call to action and awareness for everybody.
Thank you for doing that. And thank you for your commitment, because it would be really easy, I think, as a father. You talked about that 5 minutes, give me 5 minutes alone mentality that you didn't have. I often think of, if something were to happen, could I control my rage and anger? It's very big is a small word to say for what I'm trying to say, but it's a very big and important thing that you're doing.
Everybody says that to me, by the way, Fuzz. If I could just highlight quick, I know I'm talking too much.
No, you're good.
And I would have said the same thing before it happened to me. And then I had this profound and deep life-changing experience of forgiveness that I believe was a gift and a blessing to me. So this whole project is about speaking to that in people, because that's in every one of us. We don't have to react. You saw what happened on the Oscars the other night. There was a lot of reaction around that, and a lot of it was ugly. But there was a lot of beautiful response, an empowered response to it too, and that's what we're speaking to.
Yeah. What's next for the project?
Oh boy. I can't keep up with this project.
Yeah.
I don't know. From a spiritual point of view, I am now, instead of, my whole life I've been a goal setter. And I've tried to practice, because I've never been the fastest guy, the smartest guy, the biggest guy. I just try to be determined and set goals and have a focus and accomplish that. But it was always, if it is to be, it's up to me. Everything shifted for me when we lost Jessie. And now it's, when a door opens, I'm going to walk through it. If a door closes, great, let's shift and let's follow whatever is at play here that's bigger than me. Let's try to sense together what the future wants us to do next. In 60, Kennedy said, we're going to the moon. And it took 9 years, which still blows me away. But all along the way, they had to be thinking, what's the next step? That's never been done before. What's the pathway from here to there to actually get there? And brilliant minds figured that all out, and I'm not a brilliant mind.
Yeah, and it's not linear either. There's challenges along the way, and you need to overcome and find another route.
This will be harder than going to the moon, and there will be challenges every step of the way. And so I don't know what's next. What's immediately next is I've got 5 presentations in the next 5 weeks in the prisons and at a police academy and a conference up in Wausau, and there's the poster project, more planning. Next, today is I'm going to Delta Defense, sitting in on their nationwide meeting of 600-some employees, and they want me to bring the Love is Greater Than Hate faith-based series into their company. So there's always something that's next, and I'll just go with whatever that seems to be.
Sure. If somebody wants to book a presentation, have a conversation, what's the best way to get in touch?
Probably our website or our Facebook page.
Okay.
Our website is LIGTH. That's short for Love is Greater Than Hate, if you can't remember it.
Sure.
And watch out, your devices might try to autocorrect to light.
Oh, sure.
It's not light. LIGTH.org.
Are there some ways that people can help the Love is Greater Than Hate project? Obviously, with all 501c3s, donations are important and things, but how can people participate and or donate?
To me, the number one way people can help is to allow this work to grow them personally. If we're going to accomplish culture transformation, it's really just a bunch of individual transformation. So go on our website and take the pledge. Find the pledge and take it and share it with people. That's the best thing to start with. Follow, I know everybody says this, but this is literally true. follow our page and share it on Facebook. Yeah. We put messages out almost every day, and then we can break into your circle of people. Mm-hmm. Sure, donations are great. That fuels our print campaign, stuff like that. Volunteerism, we have local events, a 5K, a golf outing, a family fun fair, and the poster project.
Again, thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing your story, and most importantly, thanks for all that you're doing.
As you can tell, this project is about as personal for me as it gets. I don't have Jess anymore. I only have her mission and what I believe she came here for. And you and everyone listening today has given me one more chance to make her life and her death count for something useful and beautiful and good. So it's me that wants to thank you.
Thank you again to Buck Blodgett for joining me and sharing their family story, as well as the story of the Love is Greater Than Hate Project. If you'd like to learn more about the Love is Greater Than Hate Project, go to LIGTH.org. That's LIGTH, Love is Greater Than Hate.org. You can also find them on Facebook at The Love is Greater Than Hate Project and on Instagram at Love Greater Than Hate Project. New episodes of 15 Minutes with Fuzz come out every Monday morning at midnight. Thank you for listening. If you like the show, please be sure to subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Good Pods, Podchaser, Stitcher, Amazon Podcasts, pretty much anywhere you listen to podcasts, okay? Learn more about the show at 15withfuzz.com. Again, thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next week right here on 15 Minutes with Fuzz.